What is early sports specialization? And why should a youth golfer or parents of a youth golfer even care about it? Well, let me check my notes here because I want to get into the research on this one. Early sports specialization is focusing on one sport at the exclusion of all other sports before the age of 14. Now, a lot of parents, a lot of golfers out there might think, well, if I spend all my time trying to get better at golf, then I'm going to be the best golfer I can be. And I can understand why you think that, but I'm going to tell you now that the research says that's not true. In fact, most of the things that happen with early sports specialization are actually negatives. So I want to run you through a few of those. The first one is increased injury risk. So one of the biggest factors for any injury is how repetitive is the activity you're doing. So it doesn't matter what it is. If you're only running, only pounding the pavement, if you're only swinging a golf club, if you're only swinging a tennis racket, your risk of injury is going to go up because your body sees the same type of force over and over. It doesn't develop all the muscles, and the things that are stressed during those activities never get a break. So we often see an increased injury risk when we look at the research of athletes who specialize too early. Another thing we see is decreased athleticism. When we're growing, our bodies are maturing fast. Limbs are getting longer, and we have to learn to control them. We need to learn to control them in multiple environments with multiple different movements, some that we don't even realize we're making. So when your young golfer plays basketball or baseball or soccer, they're learning skills that they can take to the golf course. For soccer, for example, if you look at a soccer kick in slow motion, you're going to see all of this rotation from the trunk and the hips producing the power, making the foot move as fast as possible and to kick the soccer ball as hard as possible. That translates to the rotation that we have as golfers. So those skills translate to golf. Another thing we don't realize that happens, very athletic people, a lot of people say this is hand-eye coordination, will make these slight imperceivable adjustments when they're hitting a golf ball. So say you have a side hill lie and the club's coming in, and at the last second you see a golfer make a slight adjustment in their wrist position to make better contact. That's pure athleticism. That only comes from developing absolute control over your body and all your limbs. So if we're going to take our kid and specialize too early, say 8 or 9 years old, and they're only playing golf, they don't learn these tiny imperceptible changes that help them on the golf course in the future. Another thing we see is you really put a cap on clubhead speed. So that plays into the athleticism role. And what we see with youth athletes is that there seems to be this period of time, what we call a speed window, where you can preferentially recruit fast twitch muscle fibers. Those are your muscle fibers that produce quick, explosive movements. And during these speed windows, because we're growing and our muscles are more on tension, we learn to use those fast twitch fibers better. So when we're jumping in basketball or sprinting in soccer, we're developing overall fast twitch muscle fibers that we can, again, then take to apply to the golf swing. Now, if all we're doing is swinging a golf club, we're not going to train all those fast twitch fibers. We're not going to develop the ceiling of speed that we otherwise would. And then you're stuck on tour. And here's the problem. Right now, it's hard to win if you're only swinging 105 miles an hour. In 10 years, it's going to be impossible to win on tour if you're swinging 105 miles an hour, because every other golfer is going to be hitting 9-iron in the greens that you have to hit 6-iron in because your drive was shorter and you've got less distance with all of your clubs. So the last thing we want to do if we want to be successful in golf is put a cap on clubhead speed. And another thing, and this one's a little bit more of a mental thing, you typically see the risk of quitting a sport. Now, this isn't specific to golf. This is all sports. You'll find that youth athletes tend to quit their sports at younger ages, whether it's from an injury or just because of burnout or boredom, when they have excluded all the other sports. So they started golf and they really were great at 10 or 11 years old. And that's all they did until 15 or 16. And all of a sudden they're burned out. They've lost their passion for the sport. And you're never going to become great at a sport if you don't have a passion for it. I think most people can agree with me on that. So we see early sports specialization, again, increases the chances that the child will actually quit that sport. So just a quick review. early sport specialization, choosing one sport, excluding all other sports prior to the age of 14. Now, my personal opinion is you should have kids take their multi-sport careers as long as they can, at least get through high school, because you can really maximize that athleticism, especially if you have a late developing athlete. You want to make sure that the speed windows are playing a lot of sports in, but definitely don't have them pick one sport before age 14. There's just too many stats saying it does not help them succeed. Now, if you have any questions, this topic is one, it's a passion of mine. I've worked at Children's Hospital before. I've been through this research. I understand this stuff. So if there's still questions or you're unclear on this topic, please leave it in the comments below this video. I'm always happy to answer it, or you can email me and I will answer the question directly. Thanks. Hope you learned something, and make sure you keep those kids playing multiple sports so they can become the best golfer and the best athlete they can be. Thanks.